The waiting phase is over, and most people don't even realize it yet. You've been working, healing, manifesting, but that build-up energy, it switched modes days ago. Right now, reality is no longer preparing you. It's producing what you've already set in motion. In this episode, we'll trace exactly what changed, how the shift is showing up in your everyday life, and why the next 24 hours could feel unusually alive for those tuned in. The fatigue of constant becoming. You ever get the sense that you've been waiting forever for life to finally start? That strange, slow burn kind of tiredness, like you've been preparing for launch, running test after test, but never actually leaving the ground. You wake up every day with some version of, I'm almost there, but months go by, and you can't tell if you're any closer or just better at planning. That's the quiet exhaustion of constantly becoming, doing all the right things to prepare while wondering if the future you're chasing is quietly passing by. That kind of fatigue doesn't hit all at once. It builds in small, familiar ways. Another morning of journaling about clarity, another round of affirmations whispered through half-closed eyes, another podcast about raising your vibration saved to a playlist you'll never finish. All of it feels productive, but somehow, nothing feels different. You're not lazy, you're actually doing the work, just trapped in the feeling that the real transformation is always one practice away. The mind learns how to chase progress so well that it forgets how to recognize it when it happens. The strange part is, the more you focus on getting ready for your next chapter, the more distance you create between yourself and the present moment. It's like standing in front of a locked door and never noticing that it's been open the whole time. We convince ourselves that we're waiting for a sign, a breakthrough, some cosmic approval to finally live what we've been working on. But endless preparation creates an illusion of safety. If you're always getting ready, you never have to face what happens after readiness. That's the paradox that drains people more than failure ever could. Think about how self-improvement can easily sneak into maintenance mode. The meditation that once helped you release stress becomes a box to check. The vision board that used to inspire you starts collecting dust because it belongs more to the someday version of you than the person you are now. Even healing can quietly become a routine chore, something that defines you rather than frees you. It's the same story told in different forms. I'm almost who I want to be, but not quite yet. Psychologists have pointed out that the brain adapts fast to self-effort. When you practice something repeatedly, mental, emotional, or physical, the brain marks it as normal. It stops sending reward signals for progress because it assumes you're already there. That's why you can spend months building better habits and still feel stuck. Your nervous system doesn't shout, "Great job," every time you meditate. It just reclassifies calm as your new baseline. Progress hides inside routine, and you start to mistake stillness for stagnation. The tricky part is that we misread that flat feeling. We call it burnout or laziness, but it's really integration. You're not stalling, you're stabilizing. The work you've done internally is syncing with your external environment, and that adjustment doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels like fatigue, like your system is catching up to the person you've already become. The upgrades are running in the background, even when your conscious mind thinks nothing's happening. There's also that subtle narrative that whispers, "You're not ready yet." It disguises itself as humility or discipline, but underneath it's often fear of embodying the new reality you've built in theory. We repeat old affirmations not because we need them, but because we're scared to test if they already worked. We stay in preparation because it gives us control. Creation requires letting go. And letting go feels like walking without training wheels. You can balance, but only by trusting movement. Look closer, and you'll see that your so-called waiting period has never been neutral. Every moment of introspection has been changing your internal frequency, shaping how you perceive and respond to life. That subtle shift in how you handle things, the way certain conversations no longer pull you into old emotions, That's proof that transformation isn't something forming in the distance. It's actively happening in real time, through you. So if you feel drained instead of inspired lately, it doesn't mean you've lost momentum. It means the energy that was once working quietly beneath the surface has started pushing through. Fatigue isn't failure. It's the body's way of saying integration is underway. You aren't standing still. You're recalibrating to a higher setting that no longer needs as much thinking or striving as it used to. That sense of almost there isn't a gap, it's a handover. The transition between preparing and living is subtle, but once it begins, you can never go back to pure rehearsal. The system has launched. You may just not recognize the motion yet. And that's where things start to get interesting, because once you understand what causes that hidden switch from inner alignment to external creation, the whole rhythm of your life starts to sound different. The hidden switch, when preparation ends and creation begins. You ever notice how sometimes everything feels slightly different? Same routine, same people, but the air has this quiet charge to it. Not enough to call it excitement, not enough to label it anxiety, just a subtle sense that something has clicked into place. That's the unannounced beginning of a new phase, the moment when your inner alignment quietly crosses into visible creation. For many people, this turning point lines up with October 20th, a symbolic date when that internal buildup stops being theory and starts converting itself into motion. Here's the tricky part. Most people miss it. They expect a grand reveal, a clear sign, maybe fireworks in the sky, or some perfectly timed coincidence that screams, "This is it." But energy rarely flips in loud ways. It's more like a switch inside a machine you didn't know was running. One morning you wake up, and the same tasks feel lighter. Conversations flow with less overthinking. The sense of waiting fades, even though nothing dramatic has changed. That's the handover, from preparation to creation. The quiet moment your inner signal begins transmitting to the outer world. Think of it like software leaving beta mode. During beta, everything is under review. You test, you fix, you restart. Once the final version goes live, though, it doesn't need constant approval anymore. It just runs. The same thing happens with personal growth. For months, maybe years, your energy was in testing mode, refining values, healing triggers, rewriting responses. Around this point in time, all that internal coding goes public. The version of you that's been forming quietly behind the scenes starts operating out in real life. And like software, it won't feel completely different at first. It'll just stop glitching in the same old ways. What makes October 20th stand out isn't astrological hype. It's energetic timing. Collective shifts often sync with certain points in the year, when individual progress overlaps with larger cycles of momentum. You can feel it in how coincidences multiply. A friend texts the very thought you couldn't shake. You hear a random phrase that perfectly answers an old question. People describe this as synchronicity, but psychologically, it's more than chance. Research on perception shows that during periods of change, our minds become hypersensitive to relevant cues. We literally start noticing alignment because the brain filters in what now matters most. So when everything starts to line up, it's not magic, it's calibration. The inner work has taught your awareness what to look for. The environment responds by highlighting matching frequencies, like tuning a radio to a station you've always been faintly hearing but never clearly. You're not learning balance anymore. You're living it. The energy flow that used to focus on fixing is now redirected into building. Instead of tuning a frequency, you've begun broadcasting one. That's why people and opportunities who align with your new signal start appearing seemingly out of nowhere. The real giveaway isn't in big wins or breakthroughs. It's in the texture of ordinary life. Situations that used to trigger confusion now feel straightforward. Decisions take less debating. You find yourself responding with clarity you used to practice in theory. The mirror has shifted from reflecting what you need to learn to reflecting what you've already become. The lessons don't disappear. They just move into application. That's when you know the switch has flipped. You're learning from events that confirm who you are, not from ones that question it. If you pay attention, you'll notice a rhythm difference too. Old timelines move sluggishly, like walking through water. Suddenly, small efforts yield quick results. The same message you've been trying to communicate finally lands with people. Plans that once stalled begin to unfold without extra push. It looks spontaneous, but it's really the external world catching up to your updated frequency. The moment you stopped rehearsing alignment and started living aligned, the system responded. Some describe this phase as reality testing your readiness. It's not punishing or rewarding, it's mirroring. The energy you've gathered within is now participating in physical form. And while October 20th marks this threshold collectively, your personal timing might echo it in waves. You may notice it in a chance opportunity, a change in pace, or a situation resolving without effort. These are subtle confirmations that your internal rewiring has gone live. So yes, October 20th can feel like an ordinary day. You might still make your morning coffee, answer the same emails, and walk the same streets. But beneath the routine, the architecture has changed. The old blueprint of getting ready has been replaced with the active one of creating. And once that switch flips, reality starts sending proof. The question now isn't whether the energy has shifted, it's how to read the signals it's beginning to send back to you. Reading reality, the first signs of external manifestation. Sometimes transformation sneaks in quietly, wrapped in what looks like routine. You think you're just handling another normal day, replying to messages, commuting to work, scrolling mindlessly. And yet something about the way events line up feels a little too precise. The conversation you've been avoiding suddenly opens naturally. A small opportunity shows up right after you release the need to chase it. It's easy to ignore these moments because they don't come with flashing lights or a triumphant soundtrack. But this is how reality reveals that the shift has already begun. These are what you could call beta manifestations, the test versions of a new reality appearing before the full rollout. They start small for a reason. If everything you've been attracting dropped into your life overnight, your system would be overwhelmed. So, life eases new frequencies in gently, offering a trickle of signs to show that alignment is active. The problem is, most people dismiss them because they don't match the grand mental image they've built. We expect miracles that look cinematic, but early manifestations look ordinary. An email answered at the right moment, a casual invite that changes your next few months, a random thought that solves a problem you've been turning over forever. These fragments might not seem like much, but they hold the same energy signature as the larger outcomes waiting to unfold. Think about how search engines learn your preferences over time. The more you interact, the better they predict what you want to see. Reality works in a similar feedback loop. Your focus tells the world how to respond. When you give consistent attention to certain thoughts or goals, your awareness begins scanning for matching signals. Psychologists call this selective attention, the mechanism that makes you suddenly notice the same car model everywhere after buying it. The cars were always there. Your mind just started highlighting them. In the same way, the subtle shifts now appearing aren't new. They're simply the parts of reality you've tuned to notice, because your internal settings have changed. These early signals often hide in everyday exchanges. Maybe someone repeats the exact sentence you wrote in your journal weeks ago. Maybe a store clerk hands you a receipt that includes a name or number that carries personal meaning. Maybe traffic clears at the last minute right as you decide not to rush. But each one is part of a chain reaction, a preview of the bigger alignment you've been cultivating. The universe doesn't test you with big leaps. It introduces micro corrections that help you learn how to sustain the vibration of what you asked for. It helps to stay neutral when these things appear. The moment you start labeling them, that's a sign, or that probably means nothing. You pull them into an analysis loop. Observation is enough. Notice, appreciate, and move on. Awareness keeps the channel open. Neutrality prevents overattachment, and curiosity keeps you receptive to more. When you meet life with that mix, frequencies align faster because nothing gets caught on resistance or disbelief. You're no longer trying to read reality like a coded message. You're letting it speak in its own timing. There's a psychological reason this works. When you relax your need for control, your nervous system drops out of fight or flight mode. That puts your brain into a more creative state, naturally attracting new patterns of thought and behavior. What feels like reality responding differently is often your perception catching up to the level of calm and clarity you achieved internally. Outer events become the mirror image of that adjustment. The ease you start noticing is the external proof that the internal effort landed. You might catch yourself saying, "Things feel slightly sharper lately," or "Everything's kind of flowing." That subtle upgrade in mood and timing is the evidence. The system has stopped mirroring lessons and started generating results. Life feels easier, but not because it's simplified. It's because you're finally operating on a new rhythm. The energy that used to circle inward is now projecting outward, scripting events in real time. You're not waiting for manifestation to start. You're already living its early sequences as we speak. The most practical thing you can do now is interact consciously with the day you have. Treat every coincidence, delay, or shift as part of a conversation. Instead of asking what it means, ask how it invites you to respond. Maybe the delay is space for something better lined up behind it. Maybe the coincidence is your cue to say yes instead of hesitating. When you meet these patterns halfway, you stop observing change and start collaborating with it. That's the quiet turning point from receiving signs to actively co-creating outcomes. The sign that manifestation mode is officially on and the next phase is ready for you to step into. Living in the now-built version of you. You're not waiting for change anymore. You're standing inside it. What used to feel distant has quietly become your current environment. The proof isn't in what's coming next. It's in how naturally you respond to things that once triggered old patterns. Stop measuring progress by how prepared you feel and start noticing the results already moving through you. The life unfolding now reflects your completed foundation, not your draft. When you treat reality as something you're co-producing rather than chasing, momentum takes care of itself, because each awareness you hold today becomes the blueprint for the evolution already setting itself in motion.